The stars are right, and that means it's time for another episode of The Whisper in Darkness. I'm your host, the man from Leng. Thank you very much for joining me today. On this episode, we are continuing with our reviews of the player cards in the Path to Carcosa Investigator expansion. This is part 3 of our look at the Guardian cards in the box. In this episode, we discuss Ambush, Combat Training, Ever Vigilant, and Mano a Mano. There are spoilers throughout if you care about that sort of thing. If you enjoy what you hear, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Before we get started, a quick reminder of how we rate cards here on The Whisper in Darkness. The best of the best get an Elder Sign, while the worst of the worst get an Auto Fail, and the cards in between get a +1, 0, or Elder Thing respectively. Cards that you build around or cards that are good in one particular deck get a Bless token, while cards that we believe are destined to end up on the list of taboos or are simply bad for the big game get a Curse token. Before we get started, I'd like to thank the patrons of this channel for their tremendous support. You all rock. If you'd like to be amazing like these people and support the channel's goals and see your name on this list, head over to patreon.com, sign up for a tier of your choice, and claim your rewards. That would be awesome. Special thanks to Cole Monroe Chitty, Nicole Fiscus, and Nate Lost in Time and Space for their contributions to the channel. I couldn't do it without you. Without further ado, let's get started. Welcome back, everyone, to our reviews of the player cards in the Path to Carcosa Investigator expansion. We've been making our way through the Guardian cards in the box, and I have to say it has been an interesting journey so far, taking a look back at these cards and how engaging enemies and dealing damage to enemies seem to be very important at the time. We're going to start off with another one of those cards. This is our first XP card of the box. This is Ambush. It's a 2-cost event that costs 1 XP, Intellect and Combat Skill Icons. Tactic trait, attached to your location. If there are no investigators at attached location, discard Ambush. After an enemy spawns at attached location, deal 2 damage to that enemy and discard Ambush. So I'm not entirely sure why they made this card. I mean, theoretically, I really like the idea of being able to ambush an enemy. I mean, it makes sense. But you're spending a card and 2 resources.
And an action.
And an action to set up the ambush. And I think you need somebody else at your location to draw the enemy to really make the ambush worthwhile, because then you're saving the engage you would have had to have done. So you wouldn't have to shoot that investigator in the face, which I think most players would just do anyway. Mm-hmm. So rather than just I draw the enemy during the Mythos phase, okay, I take an action that doesn't cost me a card or resources to just shoot at it that I was going to do anyway. And the fact that this doesn't work on hunters, like you can't set up an ambush for a hunter.
Oh, right, because it spawns. Yeah.
Like it's just, and I mean, we've seen a bunch of these cards that attach to locations, and if you see a card that says attached to your location, you need to be very wary of it, because they tend to be pretty weak to begin with. And this one just seems like maybe it was different in playtesting and they nerfed it down, but it just doesn't seem to do a whole lot that you can't do another way. What do you guys think about this one?
I think this card was developed definitely as a stick to the plan target. So I think you're intended to buy 1 copy of it, put it on stick to the plan, and then I would assume the idea is that you get either to the final location and the scenario will spawn an enemy when you advance the act deck, and in which case you get a free hit off. Mm-hmm. Or there's a choke point in the scenario, like in Unspeakable Oath, there's that choke point in the basement. You have the Guardian sit and wait in the basement choke point, let your other teammates go off and investigate the basement cell and come back, and the Guardian ensures that you have a safe way out. Is kind of what I'm assuming is the sort of intended play with this card. And those situations do come up. It's just generally you can do better than 1 XP and 2 damage. is sort of the problem with this card. Is like, in theory, it sounds great. Like, it sounds pretty easy to set up, but the problem is that it's just not really worth that setup.
Yeah,
It's like
it seems
you're
like
basically you're spending an action now to save an action later. Is often what this card feels like.
Yeah, and it's kind of expensive for what it does. It
Yeah,
feels like one of
exactly.
those. It feels like if you're in that paradigm, and you're thinking in the paradigm where like enemies are really scary, and like, oh my gosh, I can get rid of the enemy before it even attacks me. Then that's great. That's what it seems like it's going on here. In fact, man, trip down memory lane. I clicked on this card on Arkham TV, and I found the review from 6 years ago, and this is what it says. It doesn't matter which player stays behind. This allows the party's fighter to protect a clue gatherer. So I'm starting to get like a feeling that like not only did the developers think this way, but I think the players were thinking in this very like, very hyper specialized fighter clue gatherer, paradigm.
Mm-hmm. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think it's the worst thing that a
Mm-hmm.
guardian can do, like right before a boss fight.
Oh, true.
Like,
Yeah.
there are certain situations where, like, sometimes you just kind of need a couple extra damage to kill the enemy that turn. But
Yeah.
like, you had the action the previous turn, but you didn't have it this turn. So like, having the ambush in situations like that can be pretty useful.
Mhm.
Like, for instance, if you, I don't know, for some reason you had the Ghoul Priest in play.
Oh,
And
yeah.
scenario 2, like you're still at your house or whatever, you set up an ambush on the Ghoul Priest, and now Mark can actually reasonably kill the Ghoul Priest in a single turn.
Yeah.
Because maybe he uses his Inspiring Presence combo to deal 4 damage. His other 2 actions deal 4 damage. Boom, 10 damage.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where it's like you're already the hyper specialized fighter, and then you have card slots left over to deal with this because you're doing nothing else but damage, damage, damage. Yeah, that would make sense. But then again, Mark, like as soon as you get Forgotten Age, there's a card that Mark can take that I think actually gets the job done like better, and that's Hiding Spot.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, Hiding Spot costs 1, no XP, fast, basically gets the job done. It doesn't deal damage, but it basically solves the problem of, oh my god, this is going to be terrible if an enemy happens to spawn on this specific location right now. Oh, and by the way, Hiding Spot, you can put it on any location because, it's again that one, once again, it's that like good card, bad card, hyper specialized, expensive, very generally useful, not expensive, and the generally useful card is just like way better. Yeah, I'm comparing to Hiding Spot, which Mark can take. That basically does the same thing, but better.
Yeah, it's interesting you should mention, Nate, that you think this is a stick to the plan target, because if you're not sticking this on stick to the plan, like it's already a very niche card, but then to set up the ambush properly, you need to sort of combine it with a bunch of other cards. Like you need like an On the Hunt or something like that to get an enemy. And I did note down here that cultists are very adept at avoiding ambushes because they don't spawn on you.
They don't spawn on your spot. Yeah.
So one of the most common enemies in the game can't really be ambushed unless you On the Hunt it to pull it to your location, which now you're playing a whole bunch of cards to set up 2 damage.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I mean, maybe if you're playing Nathaniel, you bump it to 3, but yeah.
I think it's funny you mentioned that too, Cameron, because there's a cultist in the artwork of Ambush, and it's actually ineffective against cultists because of how.
I also noticed that guy in the artwork is clearly hunting her. That didn't just spawn. That guy is like, okay, where are you? I've got my prey. My prey instructions say to go this way.
Yeah, there are plenty of scenarios though that do basically dump an enemy on your location, and in those situations, it's not the worst thing that you could do the turn before.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like for 1 XP, it's not the worst, but it's not great either.
Yeah, it's not gonna make your 30. That's the thing.
Ratings?
Yeah, this one's tough because I want to like it. The Arkham player in me really wants to like this card because there's been a lot of situations where it's like, oh, man, if I was just able to get like 1 more hit on this enemy this turn.
Yeah, but you gotta like declare it in advance. Like I'd feel a lot better if it was like 2 cost, 1 XP, and just said, deal 2 damage to an enemy at your location.
But there are
That could feel
times,
better.
I don't know, there are times where you're sort of in the mid game and you're like, all right, to set up before the big couple of last turns, and
Yeah,
a
that's
card like
true.
this in those turns isn't that bad.
Yeah,
Because
I
like
guess that's true.
2 free damage on a boss is 2 free damage on a boss.
Oh, it does work on elites. That's true.
Yes.
There are
Yeah,
not very
that's
many of these types of things that work on elites.
if
Yeah,
this worked on non-elites, this would be awful. But the fact that you can actually use it to damage bosses,
that's true.
not bad, because bosses do often spawn on your location. So
Yeah.
it's not the
Okay.
worst.
I think it's the worst. I'm giving it
No,
an auto fail.
boo. Boo earns.
Oh. All right, let me think about this. All right, what
I
would I
feel
play
like
over
for
this?
me to like
Alright.
this card, it would need to be redesigned.
Agreed.
Like
Agreed.
it needs to work on hunters, so at least you can sort of say like, okay, we're being chased. You
Set
guys
the
go ahead.
ambush.
I'm gonna set up an ambush here. You
Oh, that's
guys
true.
push on. I'll catch up after I deal with the enemies. Like that to me would be both thematic and useful.
Yes.
The fact that you've sort of got this expensive card that requires a lot of setup and then possibly requires you to play other cards to make it good, that just seems like you're committing a lot of deck space to
You know what I just thought about? You have Let Me Handle This. Just play that instead. You know, it's in the same box. It's in literally the same stack of cards. You know, that you just bought and opened
Mhm.
up and pulled out a shrink wrap. Let Me Handle This. Fast, 0, does the job. Yeah, just play that. Tentacle.
So Nate,
I'm gonna give it an elder thing. I don't know.
Fair,
Like
fair. Tactic. I get
within
it.
just
I understand.
this,
I understand. You know, I
within
get it.
just the 3 sets, like Mark can reasonably just take the cult and maybe the 45 automatic, stick to the plan, take 1 single copy of ambush, and there are plenty of scenarios in Carcosa that choke point you, and enemies will spawn there, and this
Mhm.
becomes useful in those situations.
You know, but you could take instead though. You could take Dynamite Blast.
Well, you could take both, right? You could
Okay.
you could ambush, something spawns in your location, then you have the upgraded dynamite blast to deal with the stuff that's incoming.
That's true. That's fair. But it doesn't kick Dynamite Blast out of its slot.
Oh no.
No. Just wanted to hear you say that.
the next card is our first composure of the box. This is combat training, 1 cost asset that has 1 XP. Combat and agility, skill icons, talents, composure, fast, limit 1 composure in play. Non-direct horror must be assigned to combat training before it can be assigned to your investigator card. As a free triggered ability, you may spend 1 resource, you get +1 combat for this skill test, or you may use a free triggered ability to spend 1 resource, you get +1 agility for this skill test, and it has a single sanity on it. So the moment you take 1 non-direct horror, this thing vanishes into thin air. Now, the composures did receive level 3 upgrades, I believe they were, in
Yep.
Edge of the Earth, and we were quite happy with those.
Oh, yeah.
The original composures, however, did not blow the community away upon first release.
Yeah, I will say with some exceptions, I like Moxie. I've used Moxie, but that's for another video. The problem with combat training is you want to compare it all already to physical training, and I think the problem with combat training is that you're a guardian, and do you ever need both boosts for agility and combat? You probably don't, and that's why I think physical training does the job better. Of like, oh, I spend resources, I get bonuses. If you're a rare guardian, I'm thinking like skids. No, but then you just play Moxie. Yeah, you don't need this. Yeah, I think what makes this one suffer is that the stat combo is like kind of bad for a guardian because you don't need both.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe Lily, I guess, if you're thinking about the broad, because there are times where she
Yeah.
likes agility, but even then, like,
But then again, she's
it's-
in the box with the good combat training. You know?
yeah, I think the biggest issue with this card, at least to date, is that the Guardians just don't have enough resources to really utilize a card like this.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
And if they did, I think, like Matt was saying, physical training ends up being more useful because you need
yeah,
willpower more often than
exactly.
not.
Yeah, and you've got to protect this in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Unless
Yes.
you just want to use it for one resource and one sanity. But
Yeah, then
there are
just play
better ways
fine
of doing
clothes.
that too. So
Yeah, for an XP especially.
how would we rate this one?
It doesn't seem bad, but I'm gonna give it an auto fail because it's just not playable. When you read it, it doesn't seem bad, but you're
Mhm.
never actually gonna use this card.
Yeah, I see what you
So
mean. Yeah, it doesn't help you avoid horror, does it?
no, it doesn't.
No.
So it's like it's very fragile. It doesn't help you protect itself a lot of
Mhm.
the time, and just generally don't really need it or don't have the money to
Mhm.
spend on it.
Yeah, this is one of those where I feel like I'd rather play Overpower or Manual Dexterity instead.
Or guts
Or
or
definitely Guts, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, this card isn't very good. Like, I'm racking my brain trying to think of the Guardian who wants the agility.
They
You
currently
know?
don't exist. It'd be cool if there was like a finesse style of guardian
Yeah.
that used agility instead of combat for
Oh yeah, like
weapons.
we were almost there with Lily. Lily almost gets there, but
Hmm.
because of like butterfly swords, but not really there. Yeah, I mean, no, it's not like a full-on like very red tentacle for me because I can't just like point to another card and say play that instead because it's still fast and it still does provide a sanity soak, which is not that bad. Slotless,
Yeah,
like
but it's like you're never gonna
but you're
use
never
it
gonna need
though.
this. That's the thing. It's like especially at an XP, it's like you need XP for other things.
It's
Yeah, I'm
like
giving this an auto fail too. It's just so just don't play this. But I can't tell you what to play instead. It's just like I don't think your deck needs this, and doesn't need to spend XP. Yeah. To play. No, I'll tell you what to play instead. Manual Dexterity.
oh,
There you go.
there's another 1 XP card that certainly takes priority over.
Yeah, this one is tough to like. It's interesting that, Mark is in the box, and Mark actually has a pretty decent agility.
True.
But, we've been talking about this, Guardian Seeker paradigm where the Guardian is basically dishing out a ton of damage, right? So why would you need the agility ever?
Yeah.
It's not like you're engaging these enemies and evading them or anything like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I just can't think of, the investigator that likes this card. Now, the upgraded version, who did we have who liked that? Was it...
Any Guardian you could take it, in my opinion.
Mm,
The upgraded version. Because it's
yeah,
slotless and it boosts 2 stats. Yeah.
right.
and
Yeah.
it gave you a ton of free sanity soak.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, yeah, I think this one's going to get an auto fail from me as well. It just doesn't do enough, and it doesn't really help the investigators in this time period, or really any time period up to this point. I mean, we may see a Guardian at some point down the line who is able to leverage both combat and agility effectively, in which case take another look at combat training and see whether that fits in that deck. But this just doesn't make the cut, especially for 1 XP, considering, Guardians at this stage of the game have a 6 XP tax to pay most of the time.
Right.
And so this is not the first card you're going to pick up, and it's probably not the last card you're going to pick up. So between stick to the plan and upgrading your guns, Guardians have a lot of XP accounted for already, and this one just is not going to see the light of day. So tentacles all around for combat training. The next card is Ever Vigilant. It is a free event that has 2 intellect skill icons, tactic trait. 1 at a time, play up to 3 assets from your hand, reducing the resource cost of each by 1. Speaking of cards that people like to stack on Stick to the Plan, Ever Vigilant is a very popular choice. As we have mentioned at several times throughout these reviews, Guardians at this stage are a little squeezed for resources. You've got, between playing your weapons and an ally, you don't have a ton of resources to work with. This one helps alleviate that issue quite a bit. What do you guys think about this one?
This card is fantastic.
Yeah, just all that action compression is like super good. Yeah.
Yeah, it basically generates 2 actions and 3 resources. Like, holy smokes, that's so good.
Oh yeah, because you get 6 actions worth of effort for 1. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's like
And
you
know what?
get 2 free actions from the 2 extra assets, and then the 3 resources it generates. Whole banana.
And if you don't need it, it gives 2 intellect icons, which is like sweet. You know, it's like
so
sweet.
good.
Yeah. Yeah, this card's so good. Oh my gosh, this card is like almost.
Card's really pushed. Honestly, it's really pushed.
Yeah, this hurts because it's like you just take all the problem. Like, let's say you asked like Mark Harrigan, "What's your wish list after like playing this game 10 times?" And then Mark Harrigan sits down and he says like, "Man, I really wish I could have more resources, and I wish I could set up faster. Oh, and by the way, I wish I could investigate from time to time." Oh yeah, let's just take that wish list, send it off to Santa, and then Santa comes back and says, "Hey, Mark Harrigan, you've been a good boy this year. Let me give you Ever Vigilant."
And the fact that you can use it on Stick to the Plan just makes your turn 1 plays so good.
Yeah, it
makes
just
them
solves a lot of
so
the problems
good.
of Guardian of like your first turn being like, okay, I want to play my gun, I want to play my crap, I'm out of resources.
Yep.
You know, but you have this and you're like you mulligan for your it's like you want a mulligan for your Ever Vigilant play. You know, the flop, so to speak.
It's like
You
you
know,
can
it's like
get almost 8 resources on the table turn 1 with this card.
yeah.
You can
And then
play
if your flop's too expensive, you could put emergency cash on your you know, you stick to the plan. So you go turn 1, emergency cash, turn 2, Ever Vigilant, flop, and then you're good to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's so good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it just
this
allows you to set up just so
Yeah.
effectively, and that is so important to Guardian's game plan in general, especially investigators like Mark and Zoe, and even Roland to some extent. Like,
Yeah, because you often want like an offhand asset.
hmm
You know.
it's like your big weapon's expensive, but then you also need like some way to soak, or you need some way to investigate, and boom, this solves all your problems.
Yeah, this is one of those cards that I initially regretted reviewing way back in the day when it was first released, because of course this card was released in, I believe, the Path to Carcosa box.
So you're right.
So when I reviewed it then, I'm like, okay, this is a great card. This is what Guardians need, but they have to draw it.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
by the time you draw this, it's not, I mean, it's great 2 intellect skill icons, but you probably set up already. So you're not really getting the benefit of it. Of course, I didn't know Stick to the Plan existed, which was released in Black Star's Rise. Had I known Stick to the Plan was coming, of course, this one, I mean, that problem is solved. You always have your Ever Vigilant ready. So, yeah, this one, as soon as Stick to the Plan was revealed, this one immediately shot up the charts. There is a, which, is it level 4 or 5?
4.
Level 4 upgrade.
4 upgrade. Was it in Scarlet Keys, I believe?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so there is a possibility to upgrade this one if you've, again, got some spare XP lying around. But, I mean, you're paying 1 for this and 6 for Stick to the Plan and probably some for your weapons. So this is probably not one you're going to be upgrading out of very soon, but your deck's going to run a whole lot smoother once you have this available to you on turn 1.
I will say, as a tip for players watching, don't tunnel vision on getting all 3 assets. If you finish your mulligan and you only have 2 assets to play, do it anyway. Because because what else are you gonna do? You're gonna like maybe draw once to look for a 3rd asset. But if you only can get 2 assets worth of value, you're still getting 4 actions of value, you know, for 1 action, which is still like that's better than emergency cash. So yeah, my tip is don't tunnel vision because you might lose your window, you know, to play this efficiently.
Yeah, just the more important thing is to get your stuff on the table. Like that's the most
that
important
acceleration.
part. Yeah. You know, I was gonna say too, like oftentimes you find yourself with a cost and a 3-cost asset. So that's your ally cult, for instance. That ends up being very common. Like beat cut plus 32 cult and mark. Boom.
Oh yeah. That's like the dream. That's the dream flop right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what it also
And
you know what it also does? It gives you a discount on combat training.
yep, sure does. So you could plop down the combat training for free as well, or your
Yeah.
off class one, for instance, if you're playing
Yeah.
some other investigator.
Yeah. I also am suddenly thinking like if you have a small card pool, I think this like synergizes well with True Grit because if you're at the beginning of the game, you've got like you fill your ally, you want to fill your ally slot immediately, and then you got True Grit there. You can't play it immediately because you've already got the ally slot, but then you slide it on in there. With Ever Vigilant. It's not bad.
Ratings?
Oh, easy Elder Sign.
Elder Sign. This is one of the strongest cards in the game. Just like the amount of like acceleration you get is like so good. This makes you like feel good to be a guardian, because you get this card.
Elder Signs all around for Ever Vigilant. Wish I could take back my original review, but
Hey, you didn't know. Hindsight.
I didn't know. I didn't know Stick to the Plan was coming. If they'd given me a tip, I definitely would have.
That does raise the question, though. Is this card as good without Stick to the Plan?
I still would say so, because if you get 2 assets worth of effort, then it's still better than it's better than an emergency cache. If you lived in the paradigm when you were really relying on physical training, which I have a feeling that was the play pattern for a long time, where you would get your like back in the day when like it was all about streetwise and higher education. I think you lived in that world where it was like get as many resources as possible, play your physical training, use the physical training all the time. Then this is less good because it doesn't give you resources where emergency cache does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if you played like that, then I can see why this was like a sleeper. But yeah, in the world as we know it now, with like where you can play like 12 or 14 cheap assets, then this is like where it's at.
Yeah. I do think it's worth discussing because there are investigators that can take this that can't take Stick to the Plan.
Right.
Like
I mean, I think I've played this a couple
instance.
times in like skids, because often enough as a rogue you want to like flop down like your gun, ally, and like what's it, lucky cigarette case or pickpocketing. Yeah, and this really helps with that. It gives you that burst of acceleration.
Yeah, and same in Yorick or Ashcan, or not Ashcan, but yeah, Yorick as well likes this card because he kind of wants to do the same thing, set up a couple weapons, and then kind of go to the races from there.
Plus, he's got recursion and resourceful, so he's often finding himself with assets in his hand and needs to like drop them down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and don't sleep on those two intellect skill icons either. If you don't happen to be able to stack this on Stick to the Plan, picking up a couple copies of these, chances are you're going to get one in your opening hand, so you can get set up fast, and then the other one is just probably gets you a clue at some point, or helps you pass a treachery that would hurt you. And some of those intellect treacheries, especially in Path to Carcosa, are
that's right. I was
very, very nasty. So
right,
having those 2 intellect skill icons is extra nice, especially in Path.
Oh yeah, that's true.
The final card we're going to talk about in this batch of reviews is Mano a Mano. It is a free event that costs 1 XP. Willpower and combat skill icons, Spirit and Bold trait. Play only as your first action. Deal 1 damage to an enemy engaged with you. This action does not provoke attacks of opportunity.
You'd have to be bold to play this, right? Ha! Got him.
Hey. Okay, the reason why this card is so bad, I'm just going to throw it out there. It does exactly the same amount of effort as a basic fight action.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to be engaged with you. And you have to do it as your first action. I think what happened is like someone at FFG was like looked at working a hunch and was like, "Oh man, can't have that on a damage. It's just too good. I guess we got to like nerf it down and make it cost an XP." This card's so bad. I mean, auto damage is good and all, but like it does the exact same amount of effort as a fight action. Just do that.
And it costs a card out of your hand. Like, yikes.
It costs a card out of your hand and an XP. It's like, good lord. And it has to be engaged with you. You can't even like use it on. You can't even use it to rescue your friends. Yeah.
And it's not tactic traded, so you can't attach it to Stick to the Plan, which like now is I think an important precedent because the box that's the capstone card of this box. So.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, it kind of is. It is the highest XP Guardian card in the box. So, yeah, that's true. Yeah, this card's kind of terrible. Just don't take
This
it.
card's so bad.
Yeah.
Easily, like
Nathaniel
we would-
even can't save this one, I think. He bumps the damage to 2, but
Yeah.
still, I mean, if you've got Nathaniel set up properly, he's probably got his boxing gloves and all his other tricks, and he's just going to knock the thing out anyway. So why do you need this thing? Like, maybe if it had 2 matching skill icons or allowed you to attack things that weren't engaged with you. But
I could see it if it were fast. Like if it didn't
Yeah.
cost you an action.
Yeah, if it was fast or if it allowed you to engage something and
Yeah.
then dealt it a damage.
Yeah.
So you could like rip an enemy off an ally and then punch it. That could be
So
nice.
this is-
but
This is actually one of the very few cards that I think is actually more action efficient than Ambush. Because Ambush, at least it doesn't cost you an action on the turn you need to spike out a bunch of damage. Where like
Mhm.
this, like it actually makes your deck worse because you're dealing 1 damage instead of 2,
yes.
you know, for an action.
And an XP.
And an XP. Like I would rather have played Ambush at that point.
You
Yeah.
could have put Ever Vigilant in your deck, but you put Mono Amano
You could have put combat training in your deck. And then you...
in.
Yeah, you can go down the list. This card's terrible.
But
Like
yeah,
play
this-
Overpower. Just play Overpower. You know, or Vicious Blow.
Mhm.
You know,
Oh, play
give
Fish.
yourself some.
Yeah.
Just play. Yeah.
now
But
there
yeah.
is a level 2 upgrade for this card in the Nathaniel Cho starter deck. I don't know what it does. I've never played this one. So
Deals 2 damage.
it does, so he'll do 3 with it. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Auto fail.
yeah, it's an auto fail. Even Nathaniel doesn't
Easy.
like this because his deck has Monster Slayer at level 0. Just play
Mhm.
that. Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
auto fail. It's so bad.
unfortunately, yeah. No, don't put this in your deck. It's not worth it. Not worth a card, that's for sure. That's going to do it for part 3 of our look at the Guardian cards in the Path to Carcosa Investigator expansion. Let us know down below what you think. Have you used any of these cards? Any notable Mono Amano plays that have won you the game? We'd like to hear about it. Any final thoughts?
If Mono Amano won you the game, a basic fight action would have also won you the
Would have
game.
also won you the game.
So I don't know.
Man, it's true. It's true.
Unless the Chaos Bag is literally all auto fails, a basic fight action probably would have also won you the game.
Yeah, it's kind of true. Yeah.
I don't know. This coming from Nate, who tends to draw an inordinate amount of auto fails.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Maybe you would have won more games if you'd been playing Mono Amano.
Yeah,
Maybe.
There's no
Maybe.
action compression. There's no action compression there, and you spent a card. You didn't do anything that was worth a card. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Like
think
that's
I-
the biggest thing.
I wonder if it like originally was fast, but they couldn't figure out how to word it without being confusing and still keep the bold thing, and then it just ended up getting bleached in the wash. You know, and you ended up with this. Yeah. That being
But
said,
Ever
Ever Vigilant's
Vigilant,
kind of
though.
amazing. Yeah. It's kind of like I said, it's like Mark Harrigan's Christmas list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so far there don't seem to be a lot of cards in the middle. They seem to be Ever Vigilant, which is amazing, and then a lot of Elder Things and Tentacles that
Yeah.
just aren't very good because they're just too specific for very
Exactly.
specific
Specific.
scenarios or situations that, I mean, maybe they were coming up in playtesting a lot, but I've played hundreds of games and have never used any of these cards, and I've done fine.
Yeah.
So
I think it might have just been like attitude, like your play style and your how scary are enemies. You know, I think it's what it really like comes down to.
that's going to do it for this episode. If you enjoyed what you hear, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. If you need to contact me, I can be reached at manfromlang@gmail.com. I'm also on Twitter at manfromlang. Until the stars are right, keep your shotgun close and your elder sign closer. Take care out there, and happy investigating.